The Grand Archive of Velora was built to outlast truth. Its pillars rose like petrified starlight, latticed with memory crystal and history seals, every wall humming softly with preserved centuries. Caliph Vorn stood alone beneath its vaulted ceiling, fingers resting on a console older than most civilizations. He preferred the archive at this hour, when the assembly chambers were empty and history spoke without interruption. Humans were listed as extinct. Not destroyed. Not conquered. Simply erased by time, according to official record. Caliph had never accepted that phrasing. Species did not vanish cleanly. They fractured, scattered, left scars. Humanity's records ended too neatly, like a sentence cut short. A low chime interrupted his thoughts. Senior Archivist Vorn, the system intoned, anomaly detected. Caliph straightened. Define anomaly. Gravitational distortion beyond coalition parameters. Origin, interstellar void sector Kappa 7. That was impossible. Kappa 7 was empty space. No stars. No mass. No reason for gravity to misbehave. Display, Caliph said. The air above the console unfolded into a star map. Lines representing stable travel corridors twisted, bending inward. Gravity values spiked, not randomly, but symmetrically, as if shaped by intent. Caliph's throat tightened. Scale? Distortion radius increasing. Estimated mass equivalent, unknown. Unknown meant unprecedented. The archive doors opened behind him. Footsteps echoed, sharp and hurried. Assistant Curator Nyrex approached, mandibles twitching with unease. The assembly is convening, Nyrex said. Military sensors are reporting the same readings. Executor Threxiel has demanded immediate interpretation. Of what? Caliph asked softly. Nyrex hesitated. Something arriving. The assembly chamber buzzed with controlled agitation. Delegates projected themselves from a dozen species, their forms flickering in overlapping spectrums. At the center stood High Executor Threxiel, armored even in diplomacy, eyes hard with practiced certainty. This is a sensor malfunction, Threxiel declared. Nothing survives the void sectors. Least of all myths. Caliph stepped forward. With respect, Executor, the distortions are structured. Gravity does not arrange itself. A ripple of irritation passed through the chamber. Archivist Vorn, Threxiel said, you study ghosts. I command fleets. Caliph met his gaze. And fleets follow physics. These readings do not. The sky above Velora darkened. It happened without warning. Light bent. Constellations stretched into thin, trembling arcs. Citizens across the capital froze as shadows slid across the atmosphere, not clouds, not storms, but vast, angular silhouettes blotting out stars that had burned since before the coalition's founding. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Visual confirmation, a sensor officer whispered. Multiple contacts. No energy signatures matching known drives. The hologram shifted. Shapes emerged, colossal structures suspended in silence, their surfaces matte and geometric, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. They did not maneuver. They simply existed, dominating space through presence alone. Caliph's breath left him. Their holding position, someone said. No weapons charging. Threxiel's jaw tightened. Automated relics, he snapped. Derelicts. Prepare identification protocols. Caliph shook his head slowly. No. All eyes turned to him. I've seen this architecture, Caliph said. His voice barely carried, yet the chamber fell silent. In fragments. In pre-coalition ruins. In data corrupted beyond recovery. Speak clearly, Threxiel ordered. Caliph swallowed. These signatures match human-era engineering. Laughter broke out, sharp and dismissive. Humans are extinct, Threxiel said. Your own archives confirm it. My archives record what survived, Caliph replied. Not what chose to leave. The sky map updated. New data streamed in, overwhelming standard filters. The objects were not ships in any coalition sense. They bent local gravity to anchor themselves, ignoring inertia, ignoring momentum, ignoring threat displays. A junior delegate spoke, voice trembling. "They're not scanning us." Caleth understood before the words settled. "They don't need to," he said. Threxiel raised a hand. "Enough. Deploy a reconnaissance wing. Minimal armament. We will remind these things who controls this system." Caleth stepped forward again, urgency sharpening his tone. "Executor, ancient records describe human response patterns. They avoid conflict until forced. Testing them is fear," Threxiel interrupted, "is not strategy." "No," Caleth said quietly. "But history is." He turned and activated a sealed archive node, one he had never been authorized to open, yet never been stopped from studying. A single recovered human data shard materialized, its edges fractured, its timestamp older than most member species. The final entry flickered into view. "If we return, it will not be to conquer, but to correct." The chamber stilled. Before Threxiel could respond, every console in the assembly flashed white. Systems across Valora synchronized involuntarily, their encryption peeled aside without resistance. A transmission filled the chamber. Not sound. Not image. Coordinates. Language matrices. Identity tags. And a name. Caleth Vorn. His blood ran cold. "They know me," he whispered. A single line of text resolved across the holographic sky, translated instantly into every known tongue. Above Valora, the warships did not move. They waited. Silence gripped the assembly chamber long after the transmission ended. No alarms followed. No weapons charged. The human warships remained fixed above Valora, unmoving, their shadows steady across the atmosphere. That stillness unnerved the delegates more than aggression ever could. High Executor Threxiel broke the quiet with a sharp exhale. "That," he said, "was a bluff." Caleth Vorn turned slowly. "It was a courtesy." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Fear, disbelief, anger, each species translated the moment through its own instincts. Threxiel gestured, and tactical projections flared to life. "Our fleets outnumber those vessels 40-1, Threxiel continued. "Their lack of maneuver suggests limited adaptability. We will not surrender authority to relics and myths." "They disabled our encryption without effort," Caleth replied. "They addressed me by name." "Psychological warfare," Threxiel snapped. "Old data scraped from our networks." Caleth stepped forward, voice firm. "They bypassed systems older than your command. This is not intimidation. It is precision." A sensor officer interrupted, antennae rigid. "Executor, reconnaissance wing Gamma has reached engagement distance." Threxiel nodded. "Proceed." Caleth felt his chest tighten. "You're making a mistake." Threxiel didn't look at him. History favors those who act. The chamber lights dimmed as the display shifted to external view. 12 coalition cruisers emerged from hyperspace, weapons dormant but ready. They advanced in formation, broadcasting identification codes and demands for compliance. No response came from the human vessels. "Range?" Threxiel asked. "Within standard weapons envelope." "Fire a demonstrative volley," Threxiel ordered. "Low yield." Caleth's hands clenched. "Executor." "Enough." The cruisers fired. Energy lances streaked across space, brilliant and lethal. They crossed the distance in seconds and vanished. Not exploded. Vanished. Sensors screamed. "What happened?" Threxiel demanded. "Energy absorption beyond measurable thresholds," the officer said. "No heat dispersion. No impact." The human warships remained untouched. Then gravity shifted. It wasn't violent. It was deliberate. Space folded inward around the coalition cruisers, pinning them in invisible hands. Hulls groaned. Engines failed. Weapons powered down as if switched off. One by one, the cruisers froze, suspended in warped spacetime like insects caught in amber. "They're disabling us," someone whispered. "No," Kaleth said. "They're demonstrating restraint." A new signal cut through the chamber. This time, it carried sound. A voice emerged, calm and unmistakably organic. "Coalition Assembly," it said. "This is Human Envoy Command." The voice was neither threatening nor pleading. It carried the weight of someone accustomed to being obeyed without demanding it. "We did not cross 3 centuries of silence to exchange weapons fire." Threxiel straightened. "You violate coalition sovereignty. Identify your leadership." A pause followed, measured and intentional. "We no longer centralize leadership," the voice replied. "You are speaking to a representative. That is sufficient." Kaleth swallowed. "Why now?" he asked aloud, forgetting protocol. The envoy answered him directly. "Because you reached the same threshold we once did." The gravity field loosened slightly. The cruisers remained trapped but intact. "You classify us as extinct," the envoy continued. "That belief kept you safe. Your actions today endanger that arrangement." Threxiel bristled. "You expect us to believe you withdrew voluntarily?" "Yes." The word landed like a verdict. Kaleth stepped forward again. "Why disappear?" Another pause. When the envoy spoke, the chamber felt smaller. "Because survival required it. We were efficient at war. Too efficient. Expansion followed conflict. Conflict followed contact. We recognized the pattern and stepped away before we burned the galaxy, proving a point." Threxiel scoffed. "Convenient myth-making." "Executor," the envoy said evenly, "your fleets are immobilized. Your planetary defenses are mapped. Your communication lattice is transparent to us. This conversation continues only because we allow it." The assembly erupted. Delegates shouted over one another. Emergency councils demanded action. Fear finally cracked through arrogance. Kaleth raised his voice. "What do you want?" The envoy responded without hesitation. "Compliance with a single directive." The chamber stilled. "Stand down your military forces. Do not pursue us. Do not reverse engineer what you have observed. Continue your governance. We will observe." Threxiel's eyes burned. "And if we refuse?" The gravity field tightened briefly. A coalition cruiser buckled, its hull compressing inward before stopping precisely short of catastrophic failure. "We correct mistakes," the envoy said. "We prefer not to repeat lessons." Kaleth felt the truth settle like a weight. These were not conquerors. They were custodians. "Why contact me?" Kaleth asked quietly. "Because you remembered us accurately," the envoy replied. "Because you understood restraint before fear." Threxiel slammed a fist against the console. "This assembly will not be ruled by absent gods." The envoy's tone did not change. "Then this concludes our warning." Space shifted again. One immobilized cruiser was released, drifting free with systems restored. The others remained trapped. "This is the extent of our demonstration," the envoy said. "The next will not be." The channel cut. The gravity fields dissolved. Coalition ships limped back into formation, shaken but unharmed. Above Valora, the human warships remained, silent and watching. Threxiel turned slowly toward Kaleth, fury and uncertainty warring in his expression. "You will assist the military in countermeasures," he said. Kaleth met his gaze. "There are none." Threxiel's silence confirmed what he feared. Above them all, the sky did not move. It waited. The final order came quietly. No declaration. No assembly vote. High Executor Threxiel issued it from a sealed command chamber, surrounded by officers who understood that obedience now mattered more than doubt. Authorize full spectrum strike, he said. All platforms. Across Velora's orbital lattice, weapon arrays powered up. Energy coils spun. Targeting matrices locked onto the human warships that still loomed in perfect silence above the world. Caliph Vorn felt the shift before the alarms sounded. The air itself seemed to tense, as if space anticipated what arrogance was about to demand. Stop, he said, stepping into the command ring. This ends civilizations. Threxiel did not turn. It ends a threat. You were warned, Caliph said. They don't escalate. They conclude. Threxiel's mandibles flared. History is written by survivors. Caliph answered softly. Then listen to the ones who survived themselves. The first shot fired. A lattice cannon discharged, its beam tearing through vacuum with enough force to fracture moons. It struck the nearest human vessel dead center. Nothing happened. No explosion. No deflection. The beam bent, curved inward, and collapsed into a singularity the size of a fist before evaporating harmlessly. Then the human ships moved. Not forward. Not back. Reality shifted around them. Coalition targeting systems went blind as gravity vectors inverted. Orbital platforms sheared apart, not from impact, but from their own mass turning against them. Weapon arrays folded inward, crushed by forces that ignored material strength entirely. Human ships did not fire. They selected. A warship over the northern hemisphere vanished, not destroyed, but erased, its mass unraveled into constituent particles and dispersed cleanly into space. No shockwave touched the planet below. No debris fell. Precision without spectacle. Cease fire. Threxiel shouted. All units, disengage. The order came too late. Human vessels began systematic neutralization. Military assets only. Fleet carriers, command relays, orbital cannons, each removed with surgical finality. Civilian infrastructure remained untouched. Communication channels stayed open. Caliph watched, horrified and awed, as an entire defense network ceased to exist without a single scream from the surface. They could have ended us, he whispered. A human transmission opened unbidden. This time, an image formed. A single figure appeared, human in outline, standing against a darkened backdrop of stars. No armor. No insignia. Just calm presence and eyes that carried centuries of restraint. This was avoidable, the human said. Threxiel staggered forward. You had no right. The human inclined their head slightly. We gave you one. You rejected it. Caliph stepped closer. Why intervene at all? The human's gaze shifted to him. Because we recognized the moment before collapse. We stood there once. Behind the envoy, starfields shifted, revealing ghostly images, ruined worlds, fractured fleets, civilizations burned by unchecked ambition. We expanded faster than wisdom, the human continued. Every contact became a contest. Every victory demanded another. We won everything except peace. The images faded. So we left, the envoy said. We dismantled empires, erased borders, and hid where conquest could not follow. We became smaller so others could grow. Threxiel snarled. You call this restraint? The human met his fury without flinching. We call it control. Silence filled the chamber. You monitor us? Caliph asked. Yes. And judge? No, the envoy replied. We correct trajectories. The remaining coalition officers stared at the displays, watching their fleets reduced to absence, not wreckage. No casualties. No survivors needed rescuing. Just emptiness where power once gathered. Threxiel sank against the console. What happens now? The human's voice softened, just slightly. You rebuild. You remember. And you teach your successors that strength without discipline invites extinction. And if we don't? Threxiel asked. The envoy's eyes hardened. Then we return. And we will not repeat ourselves. The image dissolved. Above Velora, the human warships began to withdraw. Space unfolded behind them like a curtain drawn aside. One by one, the silhouettes vanished into controlled distortion, leaving the sky whole again. Sensors stabilized. Gravity normalized. The stars returned to their ancient positions, unchanged by the lesson they had just witnessed. The assembly chamber remained silent long after the last ship departed. Caliph exhaled slowly. They spared us. They humiliated us, Threxiel muttered. No, Caliph said. They taught us. Threxiel looked up, eyes hollow. They will be remembered as tyrants. Caliph shook his head. They will be remembered as the reason we're still here. Outside, citizens gathered beneath clear skies, unaware of how close annihilation had come. Life resumed. Commerce continued. Politics reorganized itself around absence and fear. Caliph returned to the archive that night and amended a single line in the official record. Humanity, he paused, then added one final note. The most dangerous species is not the one that wages war, but the one that survives learning how not to. Above Velora, the stars burned quietly. And somewhere beyond them, humanity watched, patient as ever, waiting to see if the galaxy would learn. The galaxy did not celebrate survival. There were no monuments raised to the day humanity returned, no holidays marked in shared calendars. What followed was quieter and far more dangerous: reflection. Entire civilizations were forced to confront a truth they had avoided for millennia, that dominance was temporary, and restraint was not weakness but discipline earned through catastrophe. Caliph Vorn felt that weight more than most. Weeks after the human departure, he stood alone on the upper balcony of the Grand Archive, watching Velora's sky flow with normal traffic once again. Trade vessels moved where warships had once hovered. Life, stubborn and oblivious, reclaimed routine. Yet the silence left behind was heavier than the invasion itself. The assembly reconvened without ceremony. High Executor Threxiel no longer wore ceremonial armor. His movements were slower, deliberate, as if each step carried memory. You asked for this session, Threxiel said, settling into the central dais. Caliph inclined his head. The archives must be updated. A few delegates shifted uneasily. You already amended the record, Threxiel replied. I corrected a classification, Caliph said. That was insufficient. He activated the chamber display. Images bloomed, timelines rewritten, doctrines dismantled, expansion policies flagged with caution markers. Entire strategies that had guided the coalition for centuries now glowed red with warnings. These systems were built on an assumption, Caliph continued. That power accumulates without consequence. Humanity disproved that assumption. A senior delegate bristled. You would have us govern in fear? No, Caliph said calmly. In awareness. Threxiel studied the display. They crippled us without conquering. That contradiction unsettles every military doctrine we possess. Good, Caliph replied. Murmurs followed, but no objections rose. The humans didn't return to rule, Caliph said. They returned to limit. That should terrify us more than occupation ever could. The session ended without vote. For the first time in coalition history, uncertainty itself became policy. Later, alone in the archive's deepest wing, Caliph unlocked a channel he hadn't known existed until the humans left it behind. It activated without encryption, as if secrecy were no longer required. A familiar presence filled the space. You're persistent, the human envoy said. Caliph exhaled slowly. You planned for this conversation. Yes. Why me? Because you understand silence, the envoy replied. And consequences. Caliph hesitated. Will you return? The envoy considered. That depends. On what? On whether the galaxy mistakes mercy for permission. Caliph nodded. You didn't erase us when you could have. No, the human said. We erased what threatened you becoming us. The words settled like gravity. Are there others? Caliph asked. Species like you? The envoy's gaze shifted, distant. Not yet. But some are close. That is why we watch. And if we fail? Caliph pressed. The human's expression did not change. Then correction becomes intervention. The channel faded. Caliph remained still long after the presence vanished. For the first time, he understood the cost of survival measured across epochs, not lifetimes. Across the coalition, changes unfolded slowly. Fleets were reduced. Borders softened. Expansion charters dissolved into cooperative treaties. Not because humanity demanded it, but because no one could unlearn what they had seen. Children on distant worlds began asking new questions. Why don't we rule the stars? Because someone already tried. The answer spread quietly. Months later, Threxiel visited the archive alone. He stood beside Caliph in silence, gazing at the human records now openly displayed. I spent my life preparing for enemies, Threxiel said at last. Never for guardians. They don't see themselves that way, Caliph replied. Threxiel's voice was rough. They should have destroyed me. They spared you, Caliph said. So you would remember. Threxiel nodded once. I do. When he left, his title remained, but its meaning had changed. Years passed. The sky never darkened again. But the galaxy felt watched, not in menace, but in expectation. Humanity did not patrol. It did not interfere. It simply existed beyond reach, a silent measure against which ambition now found its limits. Caliph grew old among the shelves of memory. Before his final days, he recorded one last entry, sealed not by law but by intent. They were not legends. They were not saviors. They were the proof that survival demands restraint, and that the greatest power is knowing when to stop. He closed the archive. Far beyond Velora's stars, in regions where gravity still bent to human will, observers logged the galaxy's trajectory. No alarms sounded. No interventions initiated. For now, the lesson held. And humanity waited, patient, disciplined, and ready, should the sky ever need to answer again.